Let's get more on this story then. Joining us live now from Washington is Aaron Magid, who's a former Amman-based journalist and a Middle East analyst. Aaron, a very warm welcome to the programme. So we've seen these protests continue and protesters are saying they simply won't stop, even with the Prime Minister resigning. What's at the core of this? Does this go beyond a kind of economic frustration and unrest?
Well, it definitely goes beyond the specific tax hike of the former Prime Minister Mulki. He resigned, which was a significant victory for the protesters, but the deep-seated economic woes continue. So some of these stats are really troublesome. You have the rise in unemployment to about 18%, and it's much higher in the periphery. You have a average monthly wage of about $650 in Jordan, even though Amman is one of the most expensive cities in the Arab world. And then finally, you have the nearly doubling of bread prices. So Jordanians see the current government not as helping the people during these very difficult economic times.
And Aaron, what about the monarchy? What role can it or perhaps should it play right now? Could this current turmoil put them in danger?
Well, what is especially interesting about these protests is the speed that we've seen impact on the ground. So on Wednesday, we saw the protests begin, and already by Friday, the king had suspended the fuel tax. And then by Monday, we see the resignation of Prime Minister Mulki, which is really quite dramatic in terms of how quickly everything has been going. Now, the question remains, if the protests continue and the economic woes aren't solved, will the people also begin to turn their ire towards the king himself? Because the king will have no one else to fire unless he continues to fire a prime minister week after week. So the situation is very dangerous right now for the kingdom.
And Aaron, we heard from one of the protest organisers earlier who said, and I quote, "We want to change the path, not the individuals." But when we talk about changing the path, what could that mean?
Well, part of the reason this is so challenging is there are no cheap or populist moves that the government could do. Yes, they could cut all the taxes, but why these taxes have been implemented in the first place is because Jordan's debt has spiraled up to $40 billion. In addition to that, you only have 5% of Jordanians paying income tax. So you have a massive bloated bureaucracy where about a third of the population works for the state, but very little private sector growth. So there are no easy decisions for the government to make, and even if Hani al-Mulki is switched with a different prime minister, the next prime minister is going to face the same very difficult challenges, and which is why there are no easy solutions here.
And Aaron, it's always been a bastion of stability in countries in the region. What do you think its close neighbours and other countries around are currently thinking in terms of the support that Jordan might end up needing?
Well, I think there's a lot of concern in the region and even in the international community in general. You have Saudi Arabia, a fellow monarchy, who sees the protests in Jordan causing the downfall of the prime minister, and they would be very concerned about that discontent spreading to their country as well. You have Israel, which also neighbors Jordan. Jordan is one of 2 Arab countries to sign a peace treaty with Israel, and Jordan's border with Israel is generally one of the quietest. Israel would be very worried that instability in Jordan could lead to possibly the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood, which they very much oppose. And then finally, you have the United States and Russia, who have very strong security ties with Jordan, and they're very much interested in maintaining the status quo. Now, Foreign Minister Safadi was on CNN earlier today, and he blamed the international community for not sufficiently supporting Jordan during these economic times. But I think it's important to also note the United States has dramatically increased the amount of aid they're giving to Jordan. It's about $1.5 billion a year. Now, Jordan receives nearly double per person in development aid than Afghanistan or Haiti, according to The Economist. So Jordan, while it's consistently blaming the international community and is looking for handouts, it's going to be very difficult to solve some of these deep-seated economic woes when your national debt is at $40 billion. Is the United States going to raise its annual assistance to Jordan from $1.5 billion to $10 billion? It's just not a likely solution. So Jordan needs to really deal with its own internal issues and kind of figure out how they're going to boost private sector growth and improve their education so they can compete in the 21st century economy and not just look for handouts.
Aaron Magid there joining me from Washington, D.C. Aaron, thank you.
Thank you.